Friends from the Road. You are now listening to the Friends from the Road podcast.
Gaining new friends along the journey. Sharing stories that inspire, encourage, and motivate.
Friends from the Road podcast. Now here's your host, Daniel Hurd.
Welcome, everyone, to the Friends from the Road podcast. Today, we have a guest that I met back in 2019 in Indiana. And right now, I'm sitting here at the Lakeside Studio. It's a beautiful day, sunny. The wind is just a light breeze. The wind chimes are going in the background. I can hear the birds and squirrels making the noises that they do. It's beautiful out. And again, today we have Dan Thompson, a gentleman, a friend from the road that I met that really has a pretty inspirational story to talk about. He decided, after hearing about my story in South Bend, Indiana, through the news, decided that he would reach out to me about joining me for a ride. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some of the other adventures that he's gone on and the inspiration that he has found and used through all these adventures. So Dan, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Hey Dan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. You know, it's been a little while. I'm glad that we get to have this. It'd be even better in person, but you know, technology is great. It's like I'm looking at you in real life through the computer screen. So, you know, it was really interesting when we met. I had been on the road for quite a while at that point. I don't even remember what state Indiana was off the top of my head. I think it was in the 30s at that point. But what inspired you to reach out to me to come and join and ride with me for a day?
Yeah, I was just scrolling through and I happened to see that you were coming through and that you were doing 50 states or 48, and you've been on the road for like 10,000 miles. And you don't really have a lot of people like that in my life or from South Bend. That's not something a whole lot of people do. So, you know, I just felt like reaching out and hearing your story and seeing if I could spend a day with you on the road to kind of see your setup, get some inspiration and hear what it's like to be gone that long and just hear your story. And it was pretty awesome. You messaged back right away and said, yeah, sure, you come along. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, man. It was, you know, I actually really get excited when people are like, hey, can I join you for a ride? Because as much as I look for that every single day, you know, my nickname's Lieutenant Dan. A lot of people think of Forrest Gump. I always wish that I could be like Forrest Gump, and I wish that our world could be like that a lot of times where, you know, people just join you and ride with you as long as they can or, you know, through the journey, whatever. And it was really amazing because you had hit me up to join me on that ride, and the people I was staying with were really also into cycling and had hosted me. And he ended up joining us as well on our ride. So it was kind of cool having a couple people following behind or in front, you know, together, just riding. And we ended up riding, I think it was about 20 miles with him. And I think you ended up riding, about 35 miles with me, roughly?
Yeah, 35. We went all the way up to Lake Michigan from South Bend.
Yeah, I do remember that. But that was only halfway for you. So you ended up riding 70 miles that day.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep, I couldn't. I wanted to go more, but I knew I had to turn around. So.
Now, you had never rode that much, right? At that point? Had you ever ridden 35 miles at that point?
I'd gone on a 45 mile a couple weeks before, and I was not into cycling at all. I just kind of bought this bike and I rode it around, and I just thought it'd be really cool to ride it up to my grandma's house, who lives 45 miles away. And to me, a 45-mile bike ride at that point just seemed like some wild, big, unreal expedition. And I did that. So then I figured I was feeling good. I was like, I could tag along with you, you know, and ended up being 70, and it's not as hard as it sounds. I mean, for all you people out there thinking you can't do 70 miles, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy and anyone can do it, but I mean, you just pace yourself and you just kind of get lost in the day and keep chugging along. And it's pretty awesome. a lot of people could do it that otherwise wouldn't think they could.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I think, our minds are definitely our biggest stoppers of being proactive. And sometimes it's just like the thought of being like, dude, there's no way I can do that. I barely can walk 5 miles. But like, for instance, as I've been healing on my journey and getting my legs back into shape, I hate walking. I really do. I'd rather ride a bicycle all day. But I couldn't get on a bicycle right away. So I set a goal of walking 10 miles. I don't walk 10 miles, but I did so that I could get back on my bicycle. So, before this journey and before all the walks I've done in the past, I would have never thought I could walk 10 miles. And 10 miles is a lot on a walking wise. But just the other day, I rode 50 miles for the first time on my bicycle since the accident. So, and it wasn't, I put in less effort in the sense for that 50-mile ride than I did for the 10-mile walk. So we can actually go further on a bicycle, obviously, and it doesn't take as much effort because we have those gears. Unless you're on a single speed, which anybody that does those, hands down, badass dudes or chicks, whatever you want. So other than that, I think that it's important for people to realize how important it is to not set yourself up for failure from the start. Believe you can do it because you can. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of having that drive, which you got, Dan. Dan's got it. We got it.
Yeah.
So, so we ended up doing this bike ride. We rode quite a bit together. We went through the dunes, I think, or we tried to go through the dunes. We ended up trying to find lunch. We were trying to go to this restaurant that was closed. I think it was brand new, it looked like. And then we ended up at an abandoned water park, and that's where we ended up splitting ways. But there was a lot of stuff happening that day. Did you expect any of those things to go the way it did, or were you kind of just going with the flow? What was your expectations for that?
Yeah. I was kind of just going with the flow. I've been on enough adventures to know that if you just spend all day outside, going really far, and you're on a mission, going into new territory, some cool, interesting stuff is bound to happen. So, I mean, I could have never expected what did, but we had a great day. From those restaurants being closed, though, that was a bummer because when you biked about 35 miles and you didn't bring a ton of snacks, you really want some food. Yeah.
But we ended up getting some snacks, if I remember correctly, right? We ended up going to like a convenience store right down the street from, I think from the water park, right?
Yep. Yeah. We hit the gas station and then we went to the beach, which was pretty busy that day.
Yeah. We got food from the beach.
We got some food truck.
Yes.
Yeah, we did. We got I think we just settled on some hot dogs or something like that.
Yeah, well, I don't remember. I think that we tried to look for anything else that was open in the area, and that was the only thing there. And I think at the same time, we didn't expect food to be there because we were in the state park, I think it was, right?
Yeah, we were at the beach in the state park, so that food truck was really busy. They didn't even need to have good food, but it was going to get eaten.
Yep. Now, so that was a pretty big ride for you, obviously, but it wasn't your first ride and it wasn't your first adventure. Let's kind of go back a little bit so people can understand, Dan a little bit, and just kind of give us a brief description and summary of what you've done up to leading to that bicycle ride that we did.
Okay. Well, I kind of kicked things off in my senior year of college. I hadn't done a lot of traveling. I mean, I'm from South Bend, Indiana. We don't exactly have mountains and wilderness around here. So, but I just kind of get up and I did some road trips with my brother, and man, I just got hooked on seeing the world. I mean, I was 21 years old and it was the first time I'd ever even seen mountains.
That's insane.
So that was it just opened up, like my whole worldview shifted. And I mean, I was at the top of my class in high school and college and was kind of just figured I would do the normal life, get a career and everything. But that kind of inspired me to take a road trip to Alaska and just go on sort of a different path since then, kind of seeking out life experiences and just trying to live wild instead of chasing a career and money like everybody else was doing out of college. I drove to Alaska. That kind of led to some other road trips. I'd eventually driven through 49 states over the next 2 years after college, everything but Hawaii. Mostly road trips. And then I wanted to get out and see a little more on foot. So I decided to attempt an Appalachian Trail through hike, which only lasted about a month before it was interesting. It was my first time ever really doing a long backpacking trip like that. Because I'd mostly been doing before then a lot of road trips and camping. So it was different. I enjoyed living out of a backpack instead of a car. It was a lot simpler, a lot cheaper. Obviously, I love the freedom of it, but it's a grind getting up. And the Appalachian Trail is no joke. I kind of had these fantasies of just this ideal life in the woods, but it kind of beat me up a little bit. So after about a month of, eating crappy food and sleeping on the ground and just climbing mountain after mountain, it wore down on me.
Now,
but it helped shape me.
Hey, and it does help shape us. But so how far, I know you didn't do your whole through hike that you had prepared for, but how far did you end up getting?
Yeah, I went about just over 400 miles.
400 miles of walking, not even just flat, through mountainous terrain.
No, it's never flat. You're either going steep up or steep down.
So did you start from the southern portion or did you start in north? Where'd you go from?
I did. I started at the southern portion.
Okay.
At Springer Mountain and hiked north. It was the end of March, so it would get cold at night sometimes, but we had some good sunny days. But when it rains in April and it's 40 degrees and you're just stuck outside all day, you can really hit rock bottom. I'm sure you've had some days like that out on the bike where it's just cold and rainy and you're miserable and you're thinking, what am I doing out here?
Yeah. When I get to that point, I get this, like deer in the headlights look, like my eyes just kind of like space out feeling. I don't even a car could, somebody could be talking to me and I'll just look at them like, what are you talking about, man? So I totally get that. I've been, I feel like we've all gone through that at some point in our lives. And it's important to, we've gone through those situations, but we've made it out of those situations. Granted, you had to set yourself a goal to do the through trail, but you didn't, you did 400 miles, man. That's a lot of miles. How many other people in this world have never done 10 miles on the Appalachian Trail? You know what I'm saying? So as much as you didn't succeed your through hike, you were successful in hiking 400 miles of the Appalachian Trail. So look at it like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Something that we talked about before our recording was, the thoughts that we have of struggles. When we're going through those, man, I didn't finish the Appalachian Trail. I failed at completing the Appalachian Trail. I wasn't meant to do it. I have these, the thoughts that we go through in our minds, and anybody listening, we all have these thoughts. We get at some point in our lives, we have these thoughts where we just kind of pretty much beat ourselves down to make it justify that what we're doing is wrong. So can you explain the feelings that you were going through for any of your ventures? I know we're going to talk about one coming up, but for any of your ventures, how was it for you going through on a daily basis? What was going through your mind? What feelings were you feeling? Just so other people can kind of relate.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of that self-doubt and just constantly in my head asking myself, is this really worth it? Of all the other things I could be doing with my life, this is how I'm spending it. And is it all worth it for this, And I kind of hear, especially like societal pressure, family and friends saying I should get a job, or, all the other, I could be doing a career, but instead I'm out in the mountains and I'm doubting whether I made the right decision, especially with all those external voices telling me this is not what people do. This is, you're making a mistake. So especially on those cold, hard days, just a lot of doubt whether I was doing the right thing with my life.
Yeah, doubt, it's part of it. There's many days where I doubted my own journeys as well. And still, I'm getting ready to get back on the road. And, I did almost 18,000 miles on the road, been around cars the majority of the time. I'm afraid of cars now, man. Like, I'm trying not to be, I'm working on it, but, I have that fear in my head. So I'm stuck on it right now. And the only way we can overcome those things is by facing them head on. So that's what I've been doing. I've been riding on the roads, challenging myself to get as close as I can safely near those cars so that I can get over that fear and that anxiety that I've had created. But it's still something that I have the ability of overcoming. So that's something that I'm, the reason I bring that up is, I want people to realize that there's got to be times where we're not going to be the greatest at it. We're not going to be prepared, or, just a fear of something that's happened in our past. But we can't let it define us. And you didn't let those things define you, which is great because, like I said, I know for a fact, one of the things that you struggled with is you felt like you were selfish. You felt the guilt because you weren't doing the society norm, but you also felt a lot of self-doubt and anxiety. I remember you bringing up, and feeling like you weren't worth the time of doing these activities and these adventures. Do you feel like after completing your adventures that changes, or do you feel like those still linger?
Yeah, I feel like the adventures kind of gave me a little more clarity, from the sense that I'm thinking of things on a different, maybe a more broad level, and not just being so focused on like, this is it, I'm just doing this, and it's all about me. This is the adventure I want to go on. And kind of more seeing a bigger view on how it fits in. Like, I got a long life to live. So it's just, every decision I make doesn't mean my whole life is defined by this. Whatever happens, there's going to be a new chapter. So you just kind of got to learn what you can and take value from every experience, and don't put so much pressure on every little decision.
Yeah, no, I agree with that so much. It's, you gotta live in the moment and enjoy it now, and don't let that all kind of pile up. So, hey, Dan, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about your more recent bicycle journey and some of the other ones that you've done that were, budgets that let's show people how you did these things on a budget when we come back. I want to give a quick shout out to the people at Athletic Brewing Company, because if it wasn't for them, I would be still raiding the kids' cooler. Hanging out with friends and smelling these delicious craft beers intrigued me. Why there wasn't good quality non-alcoholic versions. I was told by some friends about these craft beers that I could have. Athletic Brewing Company produces high quality beer without all the alcohol. I finally had a beer I could enjoy with the adults. My favorite is their IPA. I love the Run Wild. I'm also a huge fan of the Golden, Upside Down. So if you want to try Athletic Brewing to get it for yourself or maybe somebody else, go ahead and use my personal promo code, capital RWD20, to get 20% off your first order. Brew without compromise. Now, back to the episode. Hey everyone, we're back to FFR podcast, and Dan, thank you for sticking around with me. I really appreciate you coming back. And before the break, we were talking about some of the adventures that you had gone on before meeting me, the adventure that you did with me a little bit. But something that really intrigued me about what you were doing was very similar to me, because part of my journey was I was doing my entire journey with no savings, figuring it out day by day, surviving from the generosity of good people, which a lot of people look at as really crazy to do, relying on people like that. But I want to show people that. But at the same time, I want to show people that you can do things on a low budget. And that's something that you've done really well. So can you talk about some of the low budgets that you've dealt with on some of your journeys?
Yeah. First, I got to say, I just love that you did yours with no donations and you just kind of set off and went for it. I love that. And that's kind of what I go for. I mean, I don't get donations or anything, but I do it on a budget because to go on these adventures, you can't have a job that you're tied down to, which means you don't have a lot of money. So if you can save money and figure out how to stretch your dollars, then ultimately you're buying yourself more time to be on these adventures. So I kind of learned a budget travel through experience because I had to. Like when I went to Alaska, I had like $1,200 in the bank at that time, and I had to spend $1,100 on gas to get to Alaska and back. So right off the bat, I mean, I got $100 and I was planning on being out there for a month or two, and I got $100 to spend. So I never once slept indoors, no hotels. I mean, every single night I found a free place to stay, slept in my car or found a free campground. It's a little bit easier to do out there. I mean, if you got a car, you can always have a place to sleep. So the hard part was making $100 last when you got to eat. So I had a lot of eating out of cans and Dollar Tree meals. I mean, I would try to spend $3 a day on food, which I don't recommend, but when you got to do it, you got to do it. So
yeah, and it's doable. Yeah. It's doable.
That got me by.
Now, so it got you by. That's pretty impressive. First of all, to survive for that long with just $100 for food, but it's also, again, it's doable, and that's something that, again, I want people to hear and see and relate to. Is we don't need like a $4,000 budget to go to Alaska. You can do it with $1,200, and other people have done it with less. So it just depends on your form of transportation. It depends on what needs you need to fill. And when you think about it, our needs are very basic. We don't need as much as we think. So if you're out there and you are planning on doing a budget trip, really look at what your needs are for that budget. But, again, so Dan, your journey for Alaska was $1,200, but that wasn't the only one you've done budgets on. What else have you done budgets with?
Yeah. So one of the favorite adventures that I've been on was the year after I did the Appalachian Trail. I kind of spent that summer at home and saved up a little bit. By winter, I had $300. That was it. And I wanted to go somewhere wild. I watched the movie Rounders, so I was kind of thinking poker maybe to make a little money. And I just packed up a backpack. I had $300. That was it. And just booked a one-way to Vegas. I didn't know anybody in Vegas. Let me say that. I had no clue where I was going to stay, where I was going to sleep every night. But, after living out of a backpack and my car for so long, I was comfortable in my own skills. I didn't care wherever I had to sleep. I was going to sleep for free or make it work. So I had everything I needed. When you got a tarp and a sleeping bag in your backpack, anywhere you want can be your home. So I just kind of made it work, and it actually ended up working out really well because I was decent at poker, but out in Vegas, there's a lot of guys out there that are not so good at poker. So as long as you get at the table with those guys, you're probably going to end up with a few more few more chips on your end of the table if you play it smart. And that's kind of what I did. I just played just enough poker to get by. On average, I would do like 15 hours of poker a week. I only averaged like $15 an hour. So I would just make a couple $100 a week on it, but it was enough to get by. It got me food. I ended up buying a car for $450. So wow. I was able to carry a little bit more stuff. It's hard to make a grocery run. You got to carry everything with you. And then, there'd be days I'd be sitting playing poker, and I got all my stuff just looking like a total hobo, and I'm sitting at the table and just, haven't showered. And
man,
but there's a lot of good hiking. If you're looking for great hiking and just lots of open land to sleep on, and just, I would just go out. If you go within an hour of Vegas in any direction, you're going to find a free place to stay. And most of the time it's not going to rain. I would just find a quiet spot and set my sleeping bag there up in the sand and wake up to the sun kissing you in the morning.
Yeah, bright and early too. Now, I know you said you have a little bit of experience for poker, but did you have much experience before going to Vegas, or was it just kind of like, I'm going to go try poker? I'm going to see how I do with this.
Yeah, I kind of just winged it. I played, maybe I just played around every once in a while with friends, but I'm pretty smart. I'm good with numbers. When I took the SAT in college, I only missed one question on the math portion. I got a near perfect score. So I just kind of figured I knew I could figure it out because numbers are kind of my thing. So yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of experience. I maybe played 5 to 10 times before, but I just gave it a shot. I figure worst case scenario, I end up broke and I hitchhike home. So it was kind of just winging it, and then ended up working out in my favor.
Mm. So what, after spending some time in Vegas, what came next?
Yeah. So after that, I went to Guatemala for a month. I spent about 3 months in Vegas, and I got kind of excited to go to a new country besides Canada for the first time. And so I booked a flight down. Actually, I started in Belize, and I spent the next month and a half down, just kind of hitchhiking and just exploring, working my way through Belize and Guatemala, and going through the jungle and sleeping on volcanoes. And there was one day I hitchhiked into just this really beautiful rock falls on this river, and you can kind of do some cliff diving and stuff. And the guy I caught a ride with ended up just letting me tag along with him for the day. And he ended up giving me a stay on his coconut farm for 3 days, just open-ended. He let me stay as long as I want. I stayed for 3 days, but yeah, that was another budget trip. When you're in Central America, your money goes pretty far. I started that trip with I had $700 I kind of had saved up from playing poker over the winter in Vegas. And that lasted me. I try to spend $20 a day at the most. You can get street food there for $2. You get a plate of chicken, big old thing of rice and beans and tortillas, and $7 hostels pretty much anywhere around there, or just camp for free. So yeah, I had to make money went a long way. Yeah, $700 was all it took to be out there for a little over a month. And actually, when I stopped back in, I had a weekend layover in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because I heard that's a good poker spot. And I made up just in a weekend there. I made over $700 playing poker before I flew home. So I basically paid for a month and a half in Central America just by doing 1 weekend of work playing poker.
That's insane. And then coming back and getting home with money in your pocket. That's pretty impressive, Dan.
Yeah.
But you brought up Florida, and I know more recently you had finally done something that was new for you. You did your first bike tour, man. You did a loop, I believe, right? A loop of Florida. Let's talk about that. What was that like?
Yeah, so my first bike tour, something that actually helped get inspired by you by, I never would have thought of a bike tour had I not met you, but it was pretty awesome. I went on a 1,000-mile ride around Florida in the winter. So if you're looking for sunshine and flat riding and a good bike tour, let me tell you, Florida is a good place to start. I just kind of went down. I started near Tampa, went down the Gulf Coast, went over through the Everglades and over, and then up the Atlantic side. And it's pretty sweet. I mean, if you like biking and just being out and seeing new things every single day, there's nothing
so
beats
much.
it like a bike tour, you know?
Yeah, and there's so much to see, especially in Florida where you did it. I tell people, unless you go to the central portion of the state, it's fairly flat, and the hills are the bridges. That's about it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There was the hills are the bridges for sure. That's when, and I would love stopping up there and kind of seeing the view. It's like climbing a mini mountain, you know. That's a Florida mountain being up on a bridge.
Yeah,
and
it really
I mean,
is.
there was one day I did 58 miles, and my elevation gain for the day was like 7 feet.
Yeah.
There were no bridges that day.
There was nothing. So tell me, so how many miles did you end up doing around Florida?
I did 1,000 miles in 18 days.
18 days.
Which,
it's pretty fast, man.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
about,
thanks. It averages about 60 miles a day.
Yeah, it's like 55, 60 miles. That's insane. That's crazy. Did you, I know we brought it up earlier, but what were the thoughts going on this bike ride? Were you doing this by yourself, or were you with people, first of all?
Yeah, I was by myself, and I just kind of started off. I didn't even expect to go 1,000 miles ahead of time. I just kind of gave me the mindset that I was just going to keep riding. If I ever got sick of it or I quit enjoying it, then I was going to call it a success and head home. But I never really got sick of it. I pretty much enjoyed every single day, just because it's always something new. I mean, when you're covering 60 miles a day, you see a lot of cool stuff that it's almost addicting. You're just rolling by, and Florida is so diverse. I mean, going along the coast and seeing manatees and dolphins, and then you see all these mansions and stuff. And then sometimes you're cutting through these little rural parts where it's farmland and little rinky-dink shacks and all the wildlife and trees and everything. It's just surreal.
Yeah, I agree with that. Florida was a great time for me. I spent Florida winter in 2018. I was down there and spent a couple months in Florida. It was a really amazing time. Obviously, I did the same thing as you, except the opposite direction around Florida, and I included the Key West. But I did it a lot slower pace, obviously. I was there for just shy of 2 months, and you did it in 18 days. But
how's Key West?
Honestly, man, I loved it. It was a great ride in. I had a lot of fun riding down to Key West because the wind was to my back, which was great. But it was also one of the first places. I was in Key West for Christmas, or the day after Christmas, 2018, and they call that week between Christmas and New Year's Hell Week. And it was so busy, man. There was so many people there that it was very difficult to find places to live or stay for the time because they don't allow camping in the Keys. So the only way you can camp is if you're on a camping ground. You can't just set up a tent in the woods or on the side of the road like I've done so many other times. And thankfully, there was a lot of people there that took me in. But, man, it was, like I said, it was like the day after Christmas. I was there until about New Year's. It was the only time that I've gotten a sunburn in December.
Wow. That's amazing that you were able to find a place to stay. That's hard over there. That's what kept me away from Key West. It's not, when you just have a little island, it's not so easy to just find some big open place to just crash where nobody can see you.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult. One of the places that I ended up staying was because, like I said, either the land that is available is completely used because, it's an island, and the land that isn't used really isn't that good to be like sleeping on. It's usually swampy or whatever. I ended up staying on the side of like a fire station one night, and then the other nights I was fortunate that people saw me riding my bike and was like, "What are you doing, man?" I'm like, "I'm trying to find a place to stay tonight." They're like, "Hey, we got a spot for you." So, it was definitely a great experience. I loved Key West. I enjoyed it. Got to meet a lot of great people and have a lot of great experiences. And plus, it was warm. I was warm for Christmas. It was the first time in my in my life that I was warm around that time of year. So, it was fun and I enjoyed it. But for you, I know you brought up to me that you still struggled at times. You probably still do. I don't know. But I know you said you struggled to find balance of certain things. What were you trying to balance out?
Yeah, my life, it's a lot of struggle. There's the big balance between that work-life balance, or the balance between just living a life full of just nonstop adventure out on the road. But when I'm out too long, then I start to miss home and I start to feel lonely and kind of miss that community. But then when I'm home, and I have all that, then I just kind of miss the road and just the ever-changing scenery and just the thrill of living life to the fullest. So I'm still trying to figure out that balance, kind of having a mix of both worlds, having that adventure and just kind of keeping life new and fresh and interesting, but also having some sort of community around me at the same time.
Yeah, and it's important to find that balance, but you can do it while you're on the road. So don't forget that. And, just enjoy, and this is for anybody, not just you, Dan, but enjoy the moments that you have. Because, we all hope that we have a long life to live, but the only life that we have is today. So if you have an adventure plan, go do it. Go have fun, enjoy it, live the experiences. Even if it's a tough day, when you're all said and done with your adventure, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, on all the days that you had that were tough for any of your adventures, looking back on it now, you can almost like laugh about it and realize that those experiences really made you stronger for the ones that you have in the future. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. No matter how shitty the day was, it's always over. Whenever it sucks, the suckiness is going to end, and life it's more sweet on the other side, really. You can appreciate all the little things that you take for granted.
Yeah. We definitely, we got to realize the things that we do take for granted, but at the same time, we got to make sure that we're enjoying it as we do it. So, Dan, we've had a good conversation so far, but something that I wanted to do is ask you, is there anything else that you would like the listeners to know? This is your opportunity to talk directly to the listeners before we end the episode. What do you got to say to them?
Oh, that's a great question. Whatever you guys are thinking about, if there's an adventure that you've been wanting to go on, or something that you're just always thinking about and it's kind of consuming you, and just go ahead and do it. It's going to end up, whether it turns out good or bad, it's going to be a good experience that you're going to learn from, and you'll know something more about yourself in the long run. And, if it involves taking time off work and you're worried about that, you can always go make more money, but what's more important than money is life experiences, and you're only getting older. So could be the best body you ever have again. So make use of it.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on to Friends from the Road podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I am looking forward to continue to see how your adventures go in the future. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Same to you. I can't wait to see once you get back on that bike, man. I know it's going to be great. You're going to be all over the place, so I'm happy for you.
I'm so excited, and it's remember, it's one pedal at a time. And for anybody else out there, if you're on a bicycle, remember, whatever you're doing in life, it's one at a time. Till next time. Copyright OPAT Movement 2021.